The Motor Dream podcast is recorded on Wallamedigal land of the Eora Nation. It always was and always will be the lands of the First Nations of Australia.
This is the Motor Dream podcast.
The garage door is lifted once again and you're welcome to step inside for another entertaining and insightful episode. I'm Connor McNally and this is the podcast where my guests can dream a little about what they like to have in their own dream garage if they had the budget and bank balance to afford it. We are 4 episodes in and we only just got started and there's still plenty more to come. If you're a regular listener, take a comfy chair and settle in. If you're new and wondering what it's all about, well, you've come to the right place. I tell my guests that one day they wake up and check their phones and discover that they receive a text to say they need to check their bank balance. They then open their bank app and suddenly discover that their bank balance has gone to Elon Musk levels. They are billionaires. As soon as they discover their newfound fortune, they get an email from this mystery benefactor that tells them that they can spend anything that they like and buy any car, bike or machine that they want. But there is a catch. They are only allowed 3 cars in their dream garage. It sounds easy in theory, but as my previous guests have already discovered, it's very, very hard to decide. You'll get to hear from drivers and riders from within the motorsport game, as well as those who work in the industry, and on the odd occasion, you may hear from some prominent personalities who all share the same passion for cars as well as motoring. So make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast on your favourite platform, as we'll be releasing episodes every 2 weeks. Now, in the last few episodes, I've been chatting to a couple of media colleagues, so I thought it was high time that I talk to a racing driver, and a rather talented one at that. In the COVID-affected year of 2020, Tasmania's Alex Peroni lined up on the grid to contest the FIA Formula 3 Championship with fellow Aussies on the grid in Oscar Piastri and Callan Williams. However, it could have just been Piastri and Williams themselves that would have been the sole Australian representatives. You see, Peroni made the sporting headlines in September 2019 for all the wrong reasons. Whilst racing at Monza supporting the Formula 1 Italian Grand Prix, he clipped a sausage curb coming out of the parabolica and went airborne into the catch fencing, where it thankfully saved his life. Many thought that he would struggle to recover from such a crash both physically and mentally. But Peroni made the grid 8 months later, and he made a considerable impact, finishing on the podium 3 times with a best result of 2nd in the feature race supporting the Spanish Grand Prix, 1 fastest lap, and 10th overall in the championship, which was won by fellow Australian in Oscar Piastri. His fight back to redemption in 2020 was lauded by his peers within the realms of Australian motorsport, where he was bestowed the Peter Brock Medal by Motorsport Australia. It was an honour that he wasn't expecting but was proud to receive, something that we discussed in my first interview with him for the EFTM F1 podcast at the end of 2020. A sideways move to Indy Lights for Roden Carlin in 2021 was short-lived, despite some promising results. But a shift to sports car racing has rejuvenated Peroni's drive to reach the top echelons of motorsport. Only this time, he has goals of becoming a full-time pilot in the FIA World Endurance Championship. Growing up in the island state that's produced many accomplished drivers, as well as growing up in a family that loves cars and motorsport, Alex has a true appreciation for motoring as a whole and is fortunate to be able to race in one of the prestigious sports car series for GT3 spec cars, the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe. At the time of this recording, I spoke to Alex just prior to his maiden appearance in the prestigious Spa 24-hour race, and he was slightly nervous yet excited on embarking on his maiden long-distance endurance race. So I hope you enjoy my catch-up with the incredibly talented Alex Peroni. Alex Peroni, welcome to the Motor Dream podcast, and it's great to chat with you again. It's been a few years.
Hi, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we were just saying it's been, what, 2 years, two and a half?
2.5 years. That's right. And you were about to embark on a campaign in IndyCars because we spoke to you for the EFTM F1 podcast, and we'll put a link up to that particular interview. But you had just obtained the Motorsport Australia Peter Brock Medal back then, and it was a great honour for you, which you said at the time. And then you were about to embark on an Indy Lights campaign with a sideways move to potentially look at going into IndyCars. But as it turned out, it didn't quite work out that way. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so obviously the natural progression from F3 is F2, but as you can imagine, the budget skyrockets for F2. And, I've always had amazing supporters from Tasmania and Australia, which has got me to that point, which is, a miracle in itself. And yeah, we had some good offers from F2, one being Carlin, which is a front running team in F2. And we couldn't quite get the budget for that. They were very nice. They held on to the seat as long as they could for me to give us time, but we couldn't quite get it. So they said, all right, so you can't make F2. Why don't you think about Indy Lights? We're thinking about starting up again in Indy Lights. What do you think? And, it made sense. Blunson has a big market in America. They want to get some coverage, and IndyCar now is booming, as I'm sure you know.
Yep.
Super competitive. It's like really, in America, it's in line with F1. Probably not in the rest of the world, but in America, it's the same level, let's say, popularity. So yeah, we decided to take that path, let's say.
You did get some decent results from it. A podium at Indianapolis, and that was pretty decent for you. And that was on the road course, is that right?
Yeah, on the road course, yeah. But you're always going with high expectations, and it was at the time it was a small car field. I think it was like 12 or 13. So we really had to go then, push. And I think people expected me a lot, coming from having a good year in F3, coming from Europe. But yeah, it was hard. I think so. We did the deal like late in the year. Carlin didn't even have the cars yet. I think we did two or 3 days of testing before the first race. So we went in a bit unprepared, and we realized that when we got there, when a lot of other teams had different parts on the car, different wings. So it's not like F3 Indy Lights. You can do a bit of R&D and make some changes to the car. And we had none of those, so we started far back, and we started crawling back, but it was just too late for us, and we had to call it early. But no regrets. We went for it, and it didn't quite work out. So
it didn't quite work out, but at least you got a few decent results, and it got your name out there as well. In hindsight, do you think you should have taken the Formula 3 route? Because you made quite an impact, particularly in the COVID-affected year of 2020, where you got a couple of podiums, you almost won a couple of races, you finished in the top 10 in the championship as well. I mean, that was a breakout year for you, as it was a breakout year for fellow Australian Oscar Piastri. But do you reckon in hindsight you should have gone down the F2 route?
Well, that was the plan. But unfortunately, motorsport, it's not just results or talent, as we all know.
Yep.
The budget for F2 that year was close to 2 million euros. So it's a lot of money. And, our sponsors were keen. As I said, I've always had amazing support, and they really wanted to go on to help me. And we almost got to the number. And yeah, we were going to race with Carlin. We had the contract ready. Carlin's a top team in F2. So no, our goal was always F1. We said that from the start, and it was always to go to F2. But if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I think I'm not the first driver, and I won't be the last for that to happen to. So,
are you proud of what Oscar's done, coming from an Australian perspective? I guess you would rather be there as a driver, but are you proud as a fellow Australian that he's up there?
I think, like, as an Australian, not really. As a friend and as someone I raced against in karting, in F3, in Formula Renault as well, I'm happy for him from that point of view. You know what it's like at this level. We don't really, because we're Australian, we're not got a bromance for each other. It's just like, we raced against each other for a long time. We had dreams when we were kids, and, I'm happy for him to made it. He clearly deserves it. And yeah, from that point of view, I'm happy for him for sure.
You've now moved on from the open wheeler side of things. You've basically, you've put that to bed, but you're now making a career in sports car racing, which is a completely different tack to anything else that you've done previously. Last year, you raced in the European Le Mans Series in LMP2 for Algarve Pro Racing, and now you're racing in the GT World Challenge Series for Get Speed Mercedes AMG. It's a completely different discipline to what you've done in the past. What's been the biggest challenges and adaptations to what you've done previously?
Yeah, it's so different. It's a different world, especially in GTs. Like LMP2 last year was a bit more aligned. It's a prototype. It kind of drives like a single seater. A lot of drivers from F2 go there, or F3. But yeah, GT World is totally different. No one cares about how you did in single seaters. No one knows what's going on. It's like its own little world. And for me, the biggest challenge with GTs is it's not really a level playing field for drivers, let's say. So, all the time in single seaters, you kind of race against people with similar experience. Maybe you're a rookie and another driver is in his second year or maximum third year. That could be the difference, or they've done more test days. But, I'm racing against people like Maro Engel, who raced in Australia in V8s. He's been Mercedes pro for 15 years. So it's difficult coming in, as a rookie, never driven the car. It's a steep learning curve, and, we have ABS and traction control, and yeah, it's a different weapon, and it takes everything you learn in single seaters, you kind of throw out the door to make this go fast, which is difficult, but it's an awesome series. It's so competitive. I think for Spa in 3 weeks we're going to have 72 cars.
That's for the 24-hour, isn't it?
For the 24-hour, which is ridiculous. The most I've had would be F3 with 30. So and they're all the same. So yeah, it's cool, and it's a good pathway. It's a good pathway for a driver as well to be professional and work with some manufacturers, which is everyone's goal at the end of the day.
It looks like you are enjoying yourself because, as you said, it's a completely different discipline altogether. Everything that you learned in an open wheelers, you've had to throw out the window. But what are the positives? What are the things that you've really enjoyed since adapting to GT racing?
I think for me, the challenge is always enjoying. The most enjoying part.
Yeah.
And it's a huge challenge, as I said, going up against these pro guys, and as an athlete or in any form of life, I guess you want to compare yourself with the best. And in GT racing, especially World Challenge, that's all the best drivers are there. And yeah, it's really enjoying. And look, once you get used to the car, it's fun. It's heavy, it's kind of slow, but it's very technical to drive. You have to be really smooth in some ways, but aggressive. You can really cut curbs and things like that. So yeah, I guess the most enjoyable, help me out, Connor.
The most enjoyable.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, the most enjoyable aspect, maybe.
There's a lot of words that start with enjoy and end with something else. But yeah, I'd say it's the competitiveness for sure.
And
comparing yourself with that.
Absolutely. And it also gives you an opportunity to do things like Spa with the 24-hour that you've not done before. But now that there's an opening with GT3 being introduced to the World Endurance Championship, that's probably going to give you a much bigger opportunity to make yourself known in that particular championship. It's a much bigger talent pool as well. It's a great way to impress some of the factory teams in that particular championship.
No, you're right, 100%. GT3, but I'd say endurance racing in general, sports car racing is booming at the moment. With all the GT attention, all the hypercar manufacturers coming back. So everyone's trying to go down this route at the moment, which is good timing from my perspective. And yeah, GTE now going away, which was in Le Mans and ELMS, the World Endurance Championship. Now GT3 is being incorporated. So yeah, it's crazy. You can do so many championships with one car now in GT3. So a lot of drivers as well that came from GT3 got the factory drives in hypercar. So yeah, it's a really good sector to be in. And, I just got to prove myself and make myself look good and attractive to manufacturers.
Well, you've already got the attraction there. Yeah, you got the physical attraction. You got the smile. You've cut the locks away. What have you done?
Oh, Connor.
I'm kidding. But you've got a good smile, which makes a difference. It's like you're the equivalent to Daniel Ricciardo in the sports car world. You've got that attraction of the good charm.
Yeah, hopefully. I wish it went a bit further, to be fair. But yeah, I just need to get some results now, and yeah, let's see.
I want to go back a bit. I want to find out about you and your career, because you started out in karting and you made quite a good impact, not just here in Australia but also worldwide. Where did that love of motorsport come from? Where did it manifest from?
I think it just came mostly from my dad. Like he was karting when he was younger. Well, even when he had me actually, when I was born. And then he was always watching F1 and rally as well, Group B rally. He used to put on his DVD and I would watch it and I'd like stand on the couch and just like be addicted to it. And I think I was 5 or even younger, I started asking for a go-kart, like pestering dad, and dad wasn't keen on it because he knew, what it could turn into and how much money you have to spend in this bloody sport.
It is
So
an
yeah,
addictive. It's addictive but expensive.
yeah. So I was just like crazy for it. Like I've got all my old school books from when I was in prep and grade 1, and they're all just with cars drawn in them and tracks. And I would explain what I did in my day, and it would be like, oh, I went to the supermarket with mum and I saw a car, or mum drove the car, and then we went to the track. So I was just addicted to it really from a young age.
And when did you realise that motor racing was your thing, that this was going to be your career?
I think probably when it was late, to be fair. I would say when it was a bit like Renault or F4 days around there.
Yep.
In karting is its own world, especially back when I was doing it. It wasn't really connected to single seater racing. So, I knew I could make a career out of karting. But then I got to F4 and saw the potential, and I started getting noticed and some good results, and I realized, what could be done, what could happen. So
Well, you made
yeah, it was pretty late, I'd say.
Yeah, well, you made quite an impact in karting. Like for example, you won all races in Tasmania in 2011 in the rookies category, and you went to the World Championship and you finished 36 in the World Championship in the juniors, which is pretty impressive. Out of a 96 entry field, that's pretty cool. And then you raced in the Rotax Pro Tour, which is, a very, very hotly contested series in itself. Everyone knows about the Rotax series. And then, of course, you went into Formula 4, where you finished 14th. It was your rookie year in car racing. And then you moved up to the French Formula Renault series, which you won in 2016. So you've had a good proving ground as well. Like, every championship that you've done, have you taken away a little something that's helped you improve your driving, your racecraft, the package as a complete driver?
Yeah, for sure. Seat time and doing all these experiences and going to Italy, competing in the World Championship, seeing how they do things over there was crazy for a 9-year-old. I mean, I basically went from racing in Tassie, to going to Europe. I remember I was even shocked by they had, guns to undo the tires, instead of the ratchet, or the trolleys had 4 wheels instead of dad, dropping the cart on its rear or picking it up. So little things like that. And look,
it was a whole new world for you, wasn't it, at that particular age?
It was a whole new world, and we were kind of trailblazing a path that not many people went on, especially coming from Tassie. Everyone just raced in Tassie and would kind of do some races here and there in Melbourne. But early we realized that we had to really move to Melbourne to race. So, we had a van, we bought a van, little high ace for $2,000 or something, chucked the cart in there, parked it at airport parking, and then went racing on the mainland. We didn't do Tassie, didn't focus on Tassie. So no one really did that. And then we decided to go to the World Championships. Everyone told us we were crazy. Why are you doing that? Why are you going to Europe? And, that's kind of normal now. And then, no one was really doing European racing in F4. I think the only Australian would have been Joey at the time.
Joey Mawson. Yep. And he's gone on to do some very good things, racing GP3, which is now Formula 3, and he's won the Motorsport Australia Gold Star. I almost said CAMS. It's the same company, the same organisation, but the Gold Star. He's won that.
Australia.
Yeah, I know. It's a bugbear of mine. Hello, CAMS. But also, he's won it 3 times. He is an exceptionally talented driver. So, to be in like a group of drivers who, really made their mark in the 2010s, like yourself, I mean, that you must have been, at the right place at the right time to be racing against these other fellow Aussies who had to sacrifice their lives in Australia to go to Europe and make their mark.
No, definitely, definitely. And look, now when I look at the junior categories now, I don't think it would have been possible. Like the motorsport world is changing so much. Kids from karting are now getting picked up in what's that, like F1 academies and going to F4, and the budgets are going crazy. So yeah, we were lucky with the timing. F4 just became a thing, and we just winged it. Like how we got here, we don't know. To be fair, like it was just me and Dad. I never had a manager. We just went to Europe. We just signed with this little team, one car team. I didn't have a teammate, and we just went for it and had a couple podiums, and then we just kind of took it year by year, which we had to. We were really in the dark, didn't have any help, and yeah, I mean, look, from the drive from Dad and my support from supporters is what got me here, and also my results. But yeah, it was an amazing ride. Every year we thought it was our last for sure. So,
well, in 2019, you thought it was the last, because we've talked about it before when we spoke the first time. It was your infamous incident at Imola, and we've spoken about that. And you were very lucky to get away with that, if truth be told. And we'll put a link up for anyone that hasn't seen that crash. For those that haven't seen it, he basically hit a sausage curb coming out of the parabolica at Monza, and basically we went high in the air, just flew into the air and got caught in the catch fencing. And you were very lucky to survive that. When you look back on that, with about 4 or 5 years of moving forward, do you still think that could have been the end?
Yes and no. It's weird because I don't remember it. I think I got knocked out when I hit the sausage curb because the car just went vertical in like one frame.
Yeah.
And I just don't really remember it, and I kind of look at it, like, especially when I first started looking, I just thought, is that me? No way. Like, I remember, obviously I was concussed, so I didn't even remember what my name was. And everyone was panicking in the hospital, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, I couldn't even feel pain at this point. And then Dad was like, finally showed me, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand.
It's like it's like Dick Johnson doesn't remember his crash when he went into the trees 40 years ago. Like, it's like you deliberately block it out. You just don't think about it.
Yeah. And I think it's like a mental, safe thing to move on and get over it. And yeah, like, obviously I think it's clear without the halo, I would be dead. So I'm lucky from that point of view, but also unlucky that the FIA puts a ramp on the exit of a very fast corner, about a meter off the race line. So I think that's something that's now starting to change, hopefully. It's still something that is a problem, I think, in single-seater racing with these curbs. People are still fracturing vertebrae and necks and whatever. So there's still a lot of work to do, but yeah, the halo definitely saved my life that day.
It sure did. It sure did. But now you're in closed cockpit cars, so you don't have to worry about riding sausage curves. You hit it, you just ride over it now.
Yeah, well, that's the goal now, to smash all the curves you can. These cars can take anything.
That's incredible. Where do you see yourself in a few years? You've obviously now making your mark in sports car racing, and there's obviously much more bigger opportunities in terms of career and in terms of the path that you can go to. Yeah, you can go as far as World Endurance Championship if you want to, but where do you see yourself in a few years?
The goal is to be like a factory driver and, getting paid to do this, because then that's when, it's sustainable a bit more. And so, yeah, like, I'm working with Mercedes this year. I'm in Get Speed, that they have a factory car. So, I want to prove myself against them, do the best I can, and, make myself look good to Mercedes. And, hopefully one year they'll give me a chance. Maybe not this year, maybe not next. But yeah, that's the goal, to be a factory driver in this. area zone. Does that mean staying in GTs? Not sure. Maybe it's potential to go to hypercar. Like we've seen a lot of the drivers from GT3 were picked for hypercar. So let's see.
And you got to look at Matt Campbell, for example. Matt Campbell went through the
Yeah,
Porsche program and look where he is now. He's racing in IMSA, but
definitely.
he's part of that Porsche program. So anything's possible.
Definitely. Yeah, no, like it's funny, like everyone's had these different paths coming from different parts of the world and they've all kind of joined to GT racing. Like Matt Campbell's an example, or racing against Jordan Love, which I actually don't know him personally, but he raced in Australia and then he
Yep.
came over here. So yeah, it's interesting. It's weird, all types of ages as well. Like it's crazy. It's cool. Something different.
I have to ask the obvious question: supercars. If that if
Mhm.
that came to be, you had to come home and you wanted to, you had to make a career in supercars. Would you do it, or are you too focused right now to even think about supercars?
Um, it's a difficult one. At the moment, I'm focused on Europe, and this is what I've been racing my whole life. Like, I've never raced on a circuit in Australia. Everyone's like, "Oh, how's Bathurst? How's Bathurst?" I was like, "Mate, I haven't even been there." I've always been focused on Europe, so for sure to make a switch now would be very difficult. I'd have to learn everything again, and the cars are a lot different over there. In Australia. It's weird saying over there when I'm from Australia, but
Yeah. It's
so
interesting.
yeah, but
It's interesting because when you look at your career results, you've not raced an actual car championship of any kind in Australia. You came out of karts, went straight to Europe, which we've already discussed, and all your learning has been on European circuits and also
yeah,
American
yeah,
circuits. It's a big jump, to go from karting
yeah,
to
yeah,
circuit racing and never race in Australia in a car sense.
definitely. It's weird. I've never raced the Simmons Plains. I think the most I've done, I did a lap in a Renault McGowan in basketball. So do you know
I
basketball?
do know
Australia?
basketball. Yeah, I know
Yeah, yeah.
basketball.
That's a local in Hobart. But yeah, that's the most I've done, which is weird.
What is it about Tasmania that produces so many good race drivers? Because we've seen some really cool talent throughout the years. We've seen John McCormack, John Bowers, a great famous example of that as well.
Mm.
And now yourself, you've obviously started to make your mark. What is it in the waters in Tasmania?
Marcos Ambrose.
Marcus
Yeah,
Ambrose,
yeah.
of
I don't
course.
know.
Yes, I forgot about
Yeah, yeah.
Marcus.
Yeah. I don't know. We're really passionate about it. We love it. We love our motorsport, especially V8 supercars. And I think it's always a bit harder for us coming from Tassie. Like, I don't know, look, I can't speak for the other guys, but, from my point of view, we would arrive late Friday night in karting, not done any testing, rock up, where these guys have been testing all month, and try and compete against them. So we're always kind of on the back foot and we got to push through it and not care and yeah, go from there. So I don't know. Maybe it's that. I don't know. Good question. I've never been asked that, to be fair.
It's a good question, but you've also had some great support over the years, particularly from a lot of Tasmanian businesses,
Exactly.
which has helped you and also helped them
100%.
promote the product. Blundstone's a great example because you not only exposed them to a European market, but the American market when you did your half season in Indy Lights.
No, definitely. Like being from Tassie, people think it's more of a curse because you don't have the wealthy people or the big businesses like Melbourne or Sydney. But, we really are a community here. We're obviously a small island, not a lot of people, but we just get behind, people, or athletes we like, and that's been amazing for me. I've had so many supporters, we used to do fundraisers every year and we'd have hundreds of people come and bid for suits and whatever. And yeah, like I think if I wasn't Tasmanian, I think it would have been harder for sure to get to the point where I've been.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
I'm going to go a little deeper now. It's obviously clear to me that you love racing. You obviously love cars as well, and you've raced some pretty cool cars in your time. But I really want to know what makes you tick as a car enthusiast. So I want to start and ask by what was the first road car you drove? Not talking about race car, the first road car you drove.
Ooh, it would be my nonno, so my Italian grandfather's Ford Focus.
A Ford
So he had
Focus.
Ford Focus. It was the generation where McRae rallied it with the
Yes. Oh,
Martini
yeah. Yes.
livery
Yes. So not
back in the day.
this is pre Focus XR5 days. I take it.
Yeah. So yeah, and he would let me. This this is grandparents know. I was like, I don't know, 12 or something, and he would let me reverse it out of the garage. It was on like a steep hill, and just kind of go up the street and come back. So yeah, that was the first one. And then the first one I properly drove, let's say, on the road would have been my mum's Ford Fiesta.
So Ford's running the family.
Yeah, it seems to. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that's a deliberate thing, but yeah.
I was expecting Italian cars, given your Italian heritage.
Yeah. No, I think mum always had mum used to have a Golf, which was cool, but this is when I was really young and then it broke down, sadly. So then we were looking for a new car and I think, the Fiesta was the best option. But I love it. It's an amazing car. It's so nimble.
Yeah.
The gearbox is great. So yeah, it's cool. Mum hates me driving it, I guess. But
They don't. The parents don't like them when we take the keys off them. It's
no, well, I think when I first got my Ps, should be peed off for me saying this, but when I first got my Ps, front wheel drive, so you can't really get sideways, so you have to use the other brake.
Yeah, I've been
So
there.
I gave it back to them one time, and I don't know. For me, it felt all right, and they got in, and they were like, "Oh, the car's like vibrating. It's got this vibration. What's happening?" I was like, well, "I don't know." So they took it to the mechanic. The mechanic said, "Oh, someone's been like playing with the handbrake." And just say like that cost me a few $100.
I bet it did. Well, you learnt the lesson the hard way, didn't you?
Worth every penny.
I bet it was. What about the first road trip you remember going on?
Ooh, it would be, I think in Tassie it would have to be when we used to go to Launceston for Simmons Plains for V8s.
Yep.
Going up what is it? Is it Tasman Highway? I can't remember, but yeah, I remember it would go on for like that for a Tasmanian. That's the biggest road trip you can do, like Melbourne Launceston or Melbourne Burnie, which was like 2 or 3 hours, which was huge back in the day. And now, for a European, that's nothing, or for a mainlander, I guess. But yeah, I'd say that. But for big ones, I'd say it was in Italy when we used to go on holiday. We'd drive around, we'd go to Tuscany to meet my uncle, my dad's brother, and things like that.
Well, I'm doing a road trip later in the year, my honeymoon. So I'm doing, when I get into Italy, I'll be going to Rome and then to Florence, up to Pisa, and then up to Bologna, so up near Imola. So.
Ooh. Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to actually do that. So I spent a whole week in Italy.
Different.
I bet.
It's driving in Italy. Luckily, you're up north. Down south is a bit tricky sometimes. Nah, you enjoy it. 130 on the highway feels like so fast for an Australian as well.
Yeah, did you get? Actually, here's a question. Was it difficult to adapt to driving on the right than the left?
No, as in coming from Australia to Europe.
Correct.
Yeah, no. For me, it makes a lot more sense. You've got the gear stick on your right, which is so much more natural. And yeah, just adjusting your car positioning, it takes a bit. But because I kind of started driving first in Europe and then in Tassie, it was kind of more the other way, let's say.
Okay.
But yeah, it feels natural. It feels better. But driving in Italy or in Europe is so much more different especially in Tassie, maybe in the mainland, not so much. But, if you're in the overtaking lane, you're not overtaking, you get pulled up about it. That's it.
What about who taught you how to drive? Or was that because you'd already been racing, you kind of knew how to drive?
Well, no. So before my first F4 test, obviously there was a foot clutch, and I've never experienced that before coming from karting. So Dad would go to this like industrial estate near the airport, and he would just put me in the car, I was like 14 or 15, just in a parking lot and practice the clutch and first, second gear and things like that. So yeah, my dad was the main one. Mum wouldn't want to risk herself getting in the car with me.
What about the worst car that you've ever raced? I know you've raced a lot of different machines over
Ooh.
the time, but has there been one race car that has really left you disappointed?
Ooh. F4 was amazing. That car was so cool. Formula Renault was cool. I think it would have to be last year I did some coaching for a gentleman driver,
Yeah.
and he had a Porsche GT2, it's called. There's this championship called GT2, which is like lower than GT3, let's say. The cars are more roadworthy, they're stock ride height, they don't have a lot of aero. And this car had tiny front wheels. So the understeer was just huge. And you'd even think about touching the throttle and the car would just wash out. So I would have to say that. The Porsche GT2, I think it's
Oh,
called.
don't think you'll be getting any calls from Porsche after that one.
Yeah. No, I think something about GT racing is these cars have potential to go a lot faster, but they have this thing called BOP,
Balance of
which I'm sure you
performance. Yep.
balance of performance. So all the cars, their tires, wings, downforce, even horsepower is controlled by the stewards or whatever.
Yep.
So the car itself is actually okay. Like the GT2 was okay, but they put these tiny front wheels on it to try and count. I guess they thought it had too much front grip, so it would just understeer. So let's say it's not Porsche's fault. There we
Yeah, all
go.
right. Well, it's the owner's
The
fault.
car was amazing. It was the tires.
It was the tyres. We've always got to blame the tyres somewhere along the line. What about the first time you changed the tyre? How old were you when that happened? Do you remember it?
Changed the tire myself.
Yep.
It would have been one of the first days. Dad used to get me to. I never used to tighten them fully though. I would just kind of finger tie them because he would obviously want to check that I didn't bloody leave them loose.
And you didn't thread the nuts or whatever, so
No. Well, I reckon I did a few times, especially later in my career. We got magnesium nuts, and they were a disaster. So soft. I'd stuff it up. But yeah, it would have been when I was 7 when we first started.
that's cool. That's cool. Last thing,
Mm.
your pet peeve with car fads. Like, do you hate stickers on cars? I know race cars are different. We don't worry about those, but your cheesy stickers or your stick family thing, or maybe even like a air freshener hanging off the rear vision mirror or something, or fluffy dice. Is there anything that really irks you when you go driving?
I don't know. I like modifications. Like I was a big JDM fanboy when I was growing up.
Nice.
So, I like the lowered, kind of wider tires, big wings look like on Evos or Skylands. So
It's funny you say that because I was in Japan recently. So it was my very first trip to Japan, and the car culture for Japan is quite massive. I mean, a lot of them get around in these very small cars because of the tax breaks that they have there. But some of them, like I saw probably one or two, one Skyline in particular, and it was modified to the hilt, like lowered, like literally to the ground, and had these fat tires, and the aerodynamics were just, next level. I mean, they really take it seriously in Japan.
yeah.
It's really,
It's like it's a culture there. Apparently, okay, these kids like my age or whatever, or car enthusiasts like us that do it, but apparently just normal mums or families modify their car, even they change the wheels or they
yeah.
do the stereo or things, like it's a very normal thing. And yeah, as you said, it's a huge culture about that. And I think, they always, when they made these cheap sport cars, well, cheap back in the day, now they're crazy. Like to import a Silvia or something, you got to pay like what, 30 grand or something. But, they kind of made them a bit underpowered, they maybe over-engineered the engine a bit, and they kind of didn't put sports wheels on them. So people were kind of, like not forced, but they wanted to make them better, I guess. But Anyway, back to your question. I don't know. I'd say one is like fake carbon anything. So like fake carbon wings or fake carbon bonnet. That kind of gets me.
Or maybe they do a mock-up, like say HSV or something. Like they try and make it look like a club sport when it's basically.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's the biggest one. You know, you see a BMW 330 diesel and it's got an M badge on it, and you're thinking, not sure.
Not sure about that. Not sure. Well, what are you currently getting around in Europe right now? Is it a Merc or is it something else?
Rental cars. Yeah.
Oh, really?
The fast cars on it.
All right. Speaking of which, do you eat in your rental car? Like, do you actually, when you go to the racetracks, do you go and get Maccas or something, and eat as you drive to the track?
Nah. I think like after race weekend, if I've had a good result, I might treat myself to a Macca's, to a McFlurry or something. But nah, normally dine in, I'd say.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's a pretty
Very
decent
classy.
answer. Some are very picky. Some will eat in cars, some won't. So you're probably one of those few that says, nah, won't eat in cars at all.
Nah, and I think it's like a big thing in America, no? Drive through, even cars even come now with like what, portable tables to eat your food on. They've got a million drink holders and whatnot. So yeah.
Too many drink holders at the best of times.
Yeah. Huge as well. Like I don't understand what you're putting in them, but
All
yeah.
right.
What's your pet peeve with cars?
Pet peeve would have to be people that have got car stereos that are like the whole boot is taken up by subwoofers and amplifiers and like, come on, seriously, just leave the like. If you can feel a car vibrating because the bass is just distorting to the max, seriously, what are you doing driving around? Are you trying to blow out your own ears? Like, are you trying to go deaf by the sound of the bass drum? I mean, come on.
So you didn't like what was it? Not West Coast Customs. What was that show where they did those crazy?
I know the one you're talking about.
With Exhibit hosting. I can't remember the name, but yeah.
I know. We'll have to find that out. But I'm not a fan of like mobile car stereos that are like on wheels. Like they're just okay if they're playing R&B or whatever, and they've got these fat bass beat or whatever. No, just leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the wannabe HSVs or whatever. Those that are done up like a HSV, but they're not. They're a simple V6 Commodore or Falcon or whatever. I was like,
that's it.
No, just leave it alone. It's a common, unless you've got the money for the real deal, just don't do it. Just leave it alone.
Accept it. Accept the loss.
Exactly. Accept your fate. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like, who are you trying to fool? Especially with the AMG and the M badges there. So I don't know. Anyway, and they're worth a bit. Those badges, they're not like cheap. I don't think.
No, they're not cheap at all. Like they're worth quite a bit of money. But even then, there's them fake ones or whatever. And they just look tacky. Just look really tacky.
Oh, pimp my ride.
Pimp my ride. That's it.
Pimp my ride.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of those kind of pimped up, cars. It's like, I mean, there's some really nice examples that are done up. And if they're tasteful and they actually look really nice, like I've seen like quite a few cars at Motorex, whatever, and they look amazing. But if they're done up so much and they're just like they've got the lights underneath the car or a car stereo that's filled up, filled the entire boot, and it's it's thumping a bass that's to the distorted max. Nah, you've lost me. You've absolutely lost me.
You got to find that middle road between functional and good looking.
Correct.
When the car's slammed and there's so much cam and you can't even get 20 Ks without the wearing through the tires. Yeah, or with a stereo and stuff. So yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's very, very weird. All right, Alex Peroni. We'll get to the business end of the podcast. The real reason why we got you on here and your very busy schedule. Now, you've done very well for yourself in motorsport, but one day you probably wake up early on your way maybe it might be Spa coming up with a 24-hour, and you get a text and it says, check your bank balance. And you think, oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. But then you go and have a look at your bank balance and you see that your bank balance has skyrocketed to Elon Musk levels. You're now an instant billionaire, and you think, oh, I don't need to turn up. Oh, wait, I've actually got to turn up and go racing. But you still go racing, but then you get an email mid-race and it says, you can do whatever you like with the money. You can buy a race team, you can buy a house, you can even buy any car, bike, or machine you like. However, the caveat is you're only allowed to have 3 cars, bikes, or machines, or all of the above in your dream garage. So, with that in mind, what is the first machine that you would have in your dream garage, Alex Peroni?
Carrera GT.
Ooh.
Has to be.
Porsche
Carrera GT.
What's the reason behind that?
Best sounding car ever built, I'd say. Manual. It's infamous. No, Paul Walker died in it, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct.
It's very hard to drive, notorious. It was developed by Walter Roll. I'm not sure if you know him.
I know of Walter Roll.
Group B legend.
Yes.
And it's got, so me and probably my best friend, who's actually an engineer, he engineered me in F4. We always talk about this. And what's so amazing about the GT, it's a bit nerdy now, getting into the nitty gritty, but the clutch and the flywheel is like off a race car. It's about this big, like the flywheel. So it just revs so fast and it just sounds amazing. So definitely Carrera GT.
That is amazing. And I'll give a bit of stats here because the engine itself, so it was mid-engined, 5.7 litre double overhead cam V10, which produced 603 brake horsepower, which is about 450 kilowatts. Walter Roll, as you said, developed it, and it was developed for sports car racing at the time, and it did win Le Mans. In fact, you can go back to the 911 GT1 and the LMP 198, which Tom Walkinshaw developed, and it actually won Le Mans. So that car has got a lot of pedigree. I mean, we know Porsche's got a lot of motorsport pedigree, but that car itself, like, to be developed from Le Mans, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, it was just like Porsche kind of said, and I think at the time when it was built, it would have had to have been maybe the fastest car in the world, if not second or third, top speed wise, because it was like just when the Enzo came out as well, and they were kind of fighting for the top speed thing, whatever, 200 and something miles an hour. But definitely that
top speed. The official top speed was 330 kilometers an hour, or 205 miles per hour. So that is pretty impressive, figures when you think about it. And 0 to 60 kilometers an hour is 2.06 seconds. 0 to 100, the official stats say 3.9 seconds, but in testing it was 3.57 seconds. So it's got
it's great, and it's manual, and it's got no traction control. No, I don't think it even has. No, I should have ABS. No, but
yes,
it hasn't got. Yeah, it hasn't got much on it, so it's cool.
It's really, and I'm just looking at the history here, like Zagato, like a manufacturer in Italy. So a little Italian coach building manufacturer introduced the Porsche Carrera GT based off that Carrera GT, and it was for a Swiss Porsche collector at the time, which had a modified carbon fiber body, which was more aerodynamic and still had the same technical specification. I mean, that's insane. And that was done 10 years ago. Like, if I had the money to be, a Porsche collector like that and modify it with a carbon fiber body, but still keep the same technical specifications, I mean, can you imagine the power to weight ratio in that? That would just be off the scale.
No, it's crazy. Like, I think if I owned it, I would just start it up and rev it every day. just to listen to that.
Just to listen to it.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't need to drive it. You just start it up and test it and just get it going.
Just red line it or cold start.
Oh, just a few final more stats around the Nordschleife at the Nürburgring. Which have you raced there as yet? The Nordschleife?
No, but I was there for the Nürburgring 24 with the team, watching most insane race in the world, I'd say. But that's another topic for another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. The time they did around the Nürburgring, the Nordschleife, 7 minutes 28 seconds, and around the Top Gear test track, Donsville Park in the UK, 1 minute 19.8. So it was at the time one of the fastest cars around that Top Gear track. I mean, like that's just, yeah, the figures speak for itself. It's a great car.
Insane.
What about
Definitely.
the second car that you'd have?
Second would have to be a Pagani.
Oh,
Which one?
you've got to be very
Yeah.
picky here.
The Zonda is just, OG and, classic, and that shape is unbelievable. But the Huayra is kind of more modern, probably drives a lot better, and I think it looks a bit better. So let's say the Huayra. And what's the ultralight one? Is it called the BC or something?
Something like
There's
that.
one. So yeah,
Yeah,
Huayra
the Huayra Roadster BC, only 40 of them were made. And then you've got the Imola model, which was built between 2019 to 21. Only 5 of them were made. So
Yeah.
the Roadster BC, 40 units have been made. It does a top speed of 383 kilometers an hour. That's 238 miles per hour. And it does 60 miles per hour, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 2.8 seconds. I mean, it's crazy figures. I mean, it's a two-door car running on, Pirelli tires, and I'm just looking like it's running a Mercedes Mercedes AMG twin turbocharged 6-liter V12. Oh, it's what I mean. What on earth? The figures are just absolutely staggering. And you look at the power output for the Roadster BC, 791 brake horsepower. That's 590 kilowatts. Like you would really need to have traction control and ABS and all that just to control the thing. It's just insane, the numbers.
It's crazy. And like they're a small kind of factory in Italy, the intricacy and the interior is just amazing. And like the car itself looks, even like everything about it is so cool. Like the mirrors, the shape of the mirrors. Like for me, that's the reason I fall in love with certain cars. It's never the performance figures, because like not even 700 horsepower these days is a lot. You've got the Bugatti, that's 2000. You got these Hennessy GT, whatever, that are
the Hennessy Venom,
or like these manufacturers like Koenigsegg. Like I like Koenigsegg, but all they care about is performance, and I think there's more to that with a car, and I think that's why I like the Carrera and I like the Zonda, because they've got something special about them.
Yeah, and I've got to say, just having a look at the car now, it actually looks really nice. Like the proportions on the car, it has some element of Ferrari about it. Not that they're copying, but they just got that Ferrari-esque kind of look about them, and yet they just look absolutely beautiful. I've never heard of the Huayra before. I've known about the Zonda, but the Huayra, wow. I am absolutely impressed. And then you got the Imola version, and only 5 of them were made. I mean, they're using the same car, the same V12, but it's producing 827 brake horsepower, 616 kilowatts. So it's producing more horsepower, and there's only 6 of them that were made, 5 for a customer and 1 as a prototype. I mean, I know figures mean very little to some, but I'm just wow. Amazed at the figures, because you can look at the car itself and it just it speaks like it's got all that horsepower, the aerodynamics. And can you imagine if you race one? I think you'd just be you blow everyone in the wind, I think.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, but like I think there's 1 or 2 in Australia.
That's right, there is 2.
One recently got taken out in Melbourne and it got snapped by everyone. Like I follow a couple car spotting pages on Facebook and stuff, and everyone was losing their mind. Someone took their wire out. But yeah, no, that's definitely, maybe depending on my mood, it might change from the Zonda to the Huayra, but Yeah, definitely a Pagani.
Yeah, the
It's amazing.
Pagani's beautiful. They are a beautiful, beautiful bit of kit. Worth a lot of money, but
Mhm.
yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
Finally, the third one, the third machine you'd have in your garage.
Ah, so like to be fair, I missed it out. Like, but then you can't. It's a supercar. It's a sports car. It's a
Mm.
ultra lightweight, whatever. Not comfortable. But then what? Do you go with that and have three hypercars? What do you drive with every day, right?
Mm.
So so maybe I have to take out the Pagani. Ooh. But so yeah, let's take out the Pagani, unfortunately, and let's put the Ferrari F40. So
The F40.
that's my dream car that I've wanted since I was like 6 or 7.
And
So
nothing.
it's just like
Well,
it's like classic.
you can still have the Pagani. Although, if you want, like the F40, I mean, everyone knows the Ferrari F40, and I
Mm,
mean, it's got a timeless look
iconic.
about it. It is an icon, an
Yeah.
absolute icon. And the fact that I think there's only a few in Australia. I know Chaz Kelly, who's the father of
Mm,
Owen Kelly, who raced in supercars and now in Trans Am. He owns one. He did target Tasmania a couple of times in that car, and I think I remember from memory. I'm sorry to do this, Chaz, but he crashed one in the very first Targa, which got him.
crashed one and they weren't happy with him. They were
No,
pissed off with him. They repaired it and they put um custom suspension in it now.
yeah,
So it now sits even lower and it looks even better now.
it's.
His collection is crazy.
Have you been to
Is
see it when you've been back home?
Yeah, a couple of times he's got like 6 or 7 of his prized possessions
Mm,
just outside the front, and then he's got a huge shed full of speedway cars,
that's right.
Australian muscle cars.
We should have
It's
mentioned
insane.
Chaz Kelly before, but and Owen as well, because they're another two prominent drivers from Tasmania, and they've made their mark. Chaz especially as a speedway driver. Um, yeah, he's like I remember when he crashed that at Targa, the very first Targa, and that was just like oh. Why?
Yeah,
And I can understand why Ferrari were not happy with him at all. Uh,
yeah,
and like even when you look at it now, it just has just drive me and go fast. That's what it does. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
as I said, a timeless look. I mean, 3 liter V8, twin turbocharged, 5 speed manual, producing almost 500 brake horsepower, and 1,300 were produced. 1,311, in fact, were produced. Yeah, it's just an icon, and I think I would still allow you to have the Pagani, but I think you'd also have the Ferrari as well.
yeah.
I don't think you could replace the Pagani with the Ferrari because they're all.
It's hard.
It's so
It's
they're both iconic for so many different reasons, and the Ferrari especially the F40. I mean, that's just the 80s. Like it was just
mm,
built for excess, but it just oh to me, if I was to own any Ferraris, that would be it. The F40, no
yeah,
question, no question.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and it's got a soft spot for me because that was the first car I fell in love with, and
Nice.
I've always wanted to drive it. So it's something that for sure one day I'd love to tick off. I mean, I sat in one. I sat in Chaz's. That was pretty amazing. But hopefully, yeah, one day to own one. But
Well, you never know if you do well in sports car racing, it could always happen.
who knows? Who knows? Never say never.
Yeah, the Porsche Carrera GT, the Pagani Hyara, and the Ferrari F40. I think it might all be, the supercar garage, but my God, they're all unique in their own different way. One from the 80s, one from the 90s, and one from current day. That's just a really cool. A really cool garage. Even I'm impressed with that. Like you really thought very hard with that, and I'm utterly
Mm.
impressed. Very, very impressed, actually.
What would you do? What would you have?
Well, I spoke about this in my very first episode of the podcast. So I'd have a Mercedes AMG GT3. I do love that car. I know you race one, but I absolutely love it because the proportions on that car look beautiful. It's got that 6.3 litre V8, which is 6.2 with the badging and that, but it's just got that throaty sound, and it sounds beautiful. Like that raw exhaust note, I just fall in love with it, and just I drive it in sim racing, so I do a lot of I try and get on the sim when I can, just for fun, and I just have to drive it because it's got that beautiful sound. It's got that, it's front heavy in a way, so it's nicer to drive for me. But there's so much horsepower, maybe too much horsepower, but it's just fun. Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3. That's, I'm a Ford fan, so that's, something I would really like. Even though the prices for an original one are now more than 7 figures, no one can afford. I mean, for a 50-year-old car, more than 50-year-old car. I mean, the prices now for a genuine, low mileage GTHO Phase 3 are just exorbitant. But we can all dream. And the third one would be an E30 BMW M3. I fell in love with it. I love those ones. I love them. I'm a BMW man. I've always been a BMW man. But I've always loved the M3 from back in the 80s to 90s, like the original E30 shape, like the box shape. And like the proportions of that car are just right. It might not have, it's just like big brakes. The aerodynamics are nice. It has a nice high torquey engine, which is just high revs. It's just a beautiful car. I still would love one all these years, and maybe my budget might be a little bit out of reach for that one, but we can all dream, can't we? We can all dream.
Yeah, and that's a car you can properly have fun on the street. Like you can enjoy it. You can go into the city, you can park it, you can send it on the highway, you can go back roads. It's a car you can enjoy. Like, my garage is a bit kind of probably not thinking practically, but.
All right, I will. Okay, if we were to include one more, I'm going to allow it. If we were to include one more, what practical car would you like?
Wow, you're not going to like this, but it would probably be a Commodore. It would probably be
right. Thanks. See you later.
What's that one? The W1. The crazy last edition one they did, which is worth who knows how much.
Who knows? Although I think when you look at the last, proper Australian built Commodore, the VE, not the VE, the VF. Yeah, you're right. Like the W1, the HSV W1. Yeah. Hold on to that. If you were to own one now, you'd hold on to it for dear life for as long as possible because you never.
Oh, definitely.
Because you'll never see anything like that. You'll never see like local manufacturing again for a long while, I think. And it's now lost upon us that we don't have local manufacturing. We don't have something that we can actually call our own now. It's
so sad.
It's so sad. And in terms of practicality, Commodore, the W1 especially, be worth a lot of money, but be one that you want to keep for as long as you can.
Yeah, because it's like for the performance for 5 seats, so much space inside. I remember my dad had the VF Calais as a work car for a bit, and it's just so spacious inside. It's crazy. It's so comfortable. And then it's got that ridiculous performance. And it's for me, it's something different. It's a cool car. Especially to have that in Europe. Yeah, I think would be amazing. No one would have seen it. Everyone would be like, "What's this?" Because, look, a lot of people these days have AMGs and M cars and whatever. So I think it's something cool. It's Australian as well. So definitely something like that.
Absolutely amazing. I would definitely allow that. In fact, you're the first person so far in the podcast that said Commodore. Not everyone else is kind of, there's a colleague of mine who works in the Super Utes, Philippa Guana. So she's of Italian heritage as well, and she works in the media side of things. And one of her cars in her garage that she would have in her dream garage is a Holden Ute, the HQ Holden Ute. So you're probably only the second person that's mentioned a Holden in their dream garage, but you're the first one to have a Holden Commodore or HSV for that matter. So that's really cool. I think. I think it's as future generations come along, they're going to miss out on what a great legacy Holden left behind, and it's very sad we don't have that anymore.
Definitely, something popular is old photos of Australia in the 70s, and you can't spot a European or Japanese car. It's just Falcon, Holden, blah blah blah, and I think every Australian family has a story of, their parents or grandmothers owning a car that they didn't even care about, which now is worth and everyone at Christmas, somebody's like, damn, I should have kept that Cortina, or I should have kept that,
Yeah.
HQ, or, whatever.
Well, it's funny because with my colleague Philippa, it was her grandfather's HQ Holden Ute, and it remains stock original. Nothing's been done to it. I don't know how much it'd be worth now, but it'd be worth quite a bit of money, just
Crazy.
just for the fact that it's more than 50 years old and it's still going. There's no rust. It's just an original example that, stood the test of time. It's incredible.
Amazing. Yeah, it's dedication.
It is dedication, and you've been very well dedicated to, giving me your time on the podcast, and I'm eternally grateful. And it's been great to catch up with you.
Pleasure.
I hope we get to do it again soon. I've been very, very, very happy to see you do so well now in GT racing, and I hope that continues for a long time to come, because
Thanks,
we would have loved to have seen you in Formula One, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But I think a Le Mans victory, if it ever happens, that could be a very nice cherry on top for what has been a good career so far, and long may that continue. And I hope one day we'll see you on the grid of Le Mans.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. So yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me, Connor. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Cheers. I've been a fan of Alex for some time, and one wonders what could have been had he had gone all the way to Formula One. We could have seen both Oscar Piastri and himself on the grid, but Formula One's loss is sports car racing's gain, and I reckon a full-time drive in the World Endurance Championship is a real possibility for the 23-year-old Tasmanian. For the record, Alex finished 32nd in the race, driving for the Get Speed outfit, where he was one of 7 drivers representing Australia, which included Supercars drivers Chaz Mostert and Anton de Pasquale. Fellow Formula 3 refugee Callum Williams was the highest placed Australian in 14th overall. You can follow Alex's exploits in the GT World Challenge Europe via his Instagram at Alex Peroni 7. Speaking of the socials, we're on all the channels, and our handle is the Motor Dream, which is also the hashtag. Head to the Motor Dream podcast website at themotordream.com.au, and that is where you can find all previous episodes, as well as show information and links to our socials. And make sure you like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave some feedback, be it a quirky car question or a guest suggestion. And don't forget to spread the word. The more listeners we have, the more we can bring you some cool interviews and some cool cars to add to the Dream Garage. Thank you as always for listening to the Motor Dream podcast. I'm Connor McNally, and remember, please drive safely out on the roads. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Motor Dream podcast. This series is proudly produced by Beast Productions.